Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Matthew. Now this is a very different video style than I normally do, but I figured, I have loved the Goosebumps series forever, so maybe I'll try to do like a kind of a book club series where every other week we'll read a book and then you guys can click on the video and just hear my thoughts about it. So it's kind of like a fun little book club. I don't know, maybe I'm a nerd, but I think it might be fun. So today we're going to be reading Welcome to Dead House. So go pick this book up from your local library, maybe find it in the back of your closet somewhere. So yeah, give this video a pause and go read it. Otherwise, if it's too much homework, then I'll just try my best to fill everybody in on the plot. So it starts out with two kids, Amanda and Josh, and their family moving into this new house in this town called Dark Falls. So if that doesn't tip them off that this place is a little spooky, I don't know what will. So they move into this house and everybody starts acting a little strange. And like throughout the book, characters start saying like, I used to live in your house and stuff like that. So they're like, how did all these people in this town live in this house? And then, spoiler alert now, so if you haven't read it, go read it. At the very end of the book, they realize that all the people living in the town are dead, and basically they start by living in that house and then they die in that house and then they can like move on. But basically how they died was a plastic factory had like a gas leak or something and it went over the whole town and killed everybody, and they need fresh blood every, I think, year to stay alive. So yeah, I'll just give my couple comments on it and then I will talk about the TV episode based off of it. So it starts off with a very generic move into a new house trope. Now in my Goosebumps retrospective video I talked about how some critics were saying, oh, some of these books are so cliche and predictable, and yeah, they are, but they're kids' books, so what do you expect? This book has definitely the classic Goosebumps kids writing, like how R.L. Stine said that he tried to like go into the mind of a kid when he wrote the book, so a lot of the kids are sassy and childish, and this one especially, and a lot of the other books following it, have the trope of like one kid's irresponsible and sassy and the other one gets annoyed with them because they're more mature. So this book has that. Amanda is the more mature one and Josh is the whiny brat. Right away in this book, the twist is apparent that the realtor is a ghost. Like, one of the big things is that his name is Compton Dawes, which Compton is an old name. And he like kind of made the joke like, oh, maybe my parents didn't know how to spell Charlie or something like that. And there were some also more hints that he was dead throughout the book. There is definitely a very shocking and disturbing scene in this book, which I'm surprised they even included. I'll just read it to you guys. When I fell back to sleep a few minutes later, I had the ugliest, most terrifying dream. I dreamed that we were all dead. Mom, Dad, Josh, and me. At first I saw us sitting around the dinner table in the new dining room. The room was very bright, so bright I couldn't see our faces very well. They were just a bright white blur. But then slowly, everything came into focus and I could see that beneath our hair we had no faces. Our skin was gone and only our gray-green skulls were left. Bits of flesh clung to my bony cheeks. There were only deep black sockets where my eyes had been. The four of us, all dead, sat eating in silence. Our dinner plates, I saw, were filled with small bones. A big platter in the center of the table was piled high with gray-green bones, human-looking bones. And then, in this dream, our disgusting meal was interrupted by a loud knocking on the door, an insistent pounding that grew louder and louder. It was Kathy, my friend from back home. I could see her at our front door, pounding on it with both fists. I wanted to go answer the door. I wanted to run from the dining room and pull open the door and greet Kathy. I wanted to talk to Kathy. I wanted to tell her what had happened to me, to explain that I was dead and that my face had fallen away. I wanted to see Kathy so badly, but I couldn't get up from the table. I tried and I tried, but I couldn't get up. The pounding on the door grew louder and louder until it was deafening, but I just sat there with my gruesome family, picking up bones from my dinner plate and eating them. So yeah, that's definitely kind of disturbing, especially the parts where they talk about their skulls and stuff. Now, there is a scene further on in the book that is way more disturbing than that, but I mean, like I talked about before, the critics, some of them were even like, yeah, these books don't go far enough. They're describing a literal person dying and like being a skeleton. I think that's far enough. And further on in the book, it gets even more wretched. Another note I had was that I really liked how the kids say, I used to live in your house, I thought that was really creepy. However, it did have a bad payoff. I have my little notes here. It did have a bad payoff. So all the characters started saying, I used to live in your house, I used to live in your house, I used to live in your house at different intervals throughout the book to like kind of clue in the reader that, wait, what? But the bad payoff was when all the ghosts were kind of circling Amanda and Josh in the house. One of them said, we used to live in your house and now we're dead in your house. Like, it's a stupid wordplay thing. Like, you know how you live in your house and they're dead in the house. It's dumb. It's kitschy. It's dumb. And there's a lot of Goosebumps writing like that, but this one is particularly bad. Like, some of the taglines, like, it will just kill you or look alive. That's fine. But like this, it was just bad. But then there was a final payoff at the end that was a lot better. So after all the dead people were killed, except for Mr. Dawes maybe, a new family was being shown the dead house. And one of the new people moving in saw Amanda and they were like, who are you? And she said, I used to live in your house. And then she kind of went back in the car and they drove away. But why didn't they try to save that family? Like, you'd think if you had such a horrifying experience, you'd try to be like, hey, maybe don't move in. And if it was the realtor, we saw throughout the book that a flashlight being shined in the realtor's face, or I guess it was Ray's face, it made it melt off. So like, if she shined a light on him or something, she wouldn't have even need to explain to the family anything. Or like, they could have even just said, hey, this house is falling apart, it's a piece of crap, don't move in, or something like that. I don't know, like, they could have tried to save the family. Now I guess I gotta read the part with Ray's face melting off, which I thought was so cool, but also really pushing it for a kid's book. The light shone in Ray's face, the bright white halogen light. What's going on? Josh asked in a high-pitched, nervous voice. Amanda, what's happening? Ray cried out and dropped back to the ground. Turn that off! Turn it off! He screeched, his voice a shrill whisper, like wind through a broken window pane. But Josh held the bright beam of light on Ray. What's going on? What are you doing? As I stared into the light, I struggled to stop my heart from pounding so hard. Ray moved his arms to shield himself from the light, but I could see what was happening to him. The light had already done its damage. Ray's skin seemed to be melting. His whole face sagged, then fell, dropping off his skull. I stared into the circle of white light, unable to look away as Ray's skin folded and drooped and melted away. As the bone underneath was revealed, his eyeballs rolled out of their sockets and fell silently to the ground. Josh, frozen in horror, somehow held the bright light steady, and we both stared at the grinning skull, its dark crater staring back at us. Oh! I shrieked as Ray took a step toward me, but then I realized that Ray wasn't walking, he was falling. I jumped aside as he crumpled to the ground, and gasped as his skull hit the top of the marble gravestone and cracked open with a sickening splat. Like, how disturbing is that? Like, just the crack on the gravestone, that gives me the same, like, gross out factor that the Boys TV show did with all the blood and gore. I personally can't handle a lot of blood, or, well, in movies it's not terrible, but, like, the thought of, like, Also, I found a kind of a plot hole. So, and I don't know if it's a real plot hole or if it's just like me like being confused or something, but I'll just say it. So, are the characters ghosts or are they zombies? Like the dead people. Are they ghosts or zombies? They don't have to be either or both. But it's just like the book doesn't seem to know exactly what they are. Like, they seem to be physical beings if they can like hit a gravestone and crack in half, but then why does light harm them? And then how can they fly? Like, they can fly, they have ghostly powers. How can they do that? I don't know. Like, it seems like they're both a zombie and a ghost. And I guess they can be, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's weird personally, but whatever. And then my other question is, if the plastic factory had the cloud go over the town and they all died, how did they get gravestones? Because that's how they figure out that they're dead, is they see their names on the gravestones. How do they get buried? Do people come from the next town over and bury them and then they reach up and come up from the ground later on? I don't understand it. But yeah, so that was me talking about the book. Now let's go watch the TV show. So just hit pause and then come back and we'll talk about the show. Alright, so let's talk about the TV show. My first question is, why is it in season 4? Netflix says it's in like season 2 or something, and they're all messed up. But then Welcome to Dead House is actually in season 4. Wouldn't it just make sense if you're making a Goosebumps TV show to just look at the list of books and just go down in order? Ugh. So right off the bat, the Goosebumps theme, ultimate nostalgia. The intro from R.L. Stine seemed really stilted and read from a teleprompter. And I've seen stuff where it's like kind of poking fun of them. Like, for somebody who had his whole career based off of Goosebumps, basically, he seems so uninterested in it. And maybe he's just like kind of a bland public speaker, but he seems so bored, and it's kind of funny. The music in this episode is so good. Like, they hit the nail on the head. The music is spot on, and obviously I can't play any of it because of our wonderful YouTube copyright system. Love it. Just a little nitpick. The girl in the episode seemed a lot older than I pictured. Like, she seemed like, what, 13 in the book or something? She looks way older than that in the show. And they didn't really follow the physical description of the characters well. Like, Amanda seemed pretty accurate to the book, but Josh had blonde hair, and they're both supposed to have dark hair. It seemed like the kid who played Ray could have played Josh. Like, they could have swapped the actors out, because Ray was supposed to have blonde hair. I don't know. It didn't really follow the physical descriptions, but they did act a lot like the characters, so they got that right. The sets were so good. They were exactly what I pictured in the book. Sometimes they did look like sets, like the part where it showed the wreath, which was a whole addition. That wasn't in the Welcome to Dead House book at all. Sometimes it looked like a set, but other times it looked exactly like what I had pictured when I read the book. Oh, they of course cut out the dream sequence and Ray's face melting off. Go figure. Some of the things that were different, like, originally in the book, the characters met Ray first and then they went to the playground and kind of hung out with the other kids. In this show, all the kids circled around them at first and then Ray broke them up. I don't know. It's just a little different. It didn't seem to flow as well as the book did, but I know they probably were on a time budget, so. Oh, I really, really like the girls' talk and relationship with the dad. They had this whole talk about how, hey, I know you guys don't like this town really, and you don't really like the house, but we were so fortunate to get this house for free, and other people don't have luxuries like that, so just, you gotta try to make the best of it. I really loved that conversation. It was really good. And that was something that was lacking in the book. The book seemed to be like, the parents were just constantly annoyed with the kids, like, oh my gosh, can you just shut up, like that kind of thing, instead of like actually having a nice father-daughter conversation, you know, where it showed that they actually do care about each other. Oh, so this episode was a part 1 and part 2, and it did not flow well from one to the other. Like, part 1 ended with the dog barking at a fence, and they were like, who's there? Who's there? Who's there? And then a hand kind of creeps up from the cellar. Part 2 opens with the hand in the wall coming out of the wall and dropping a newspaper. There's no mention of the fence or who was at it, unless it was just cut on Netflix, like that part was cut out of it. I don't know, but it wasn't in it. And I was like, what? So the hand must have left the newspaper that talks about the chemical spill and the scene where the dad argues with Dawes about, why didn't you tell us this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I like that too. Like, it shows that he cares about his family and that Dawes kind of like manipulated them into moving in. The only thing that I didn't really care for in the show, besides the small budget, you could really tell some of the special effects were bad. We'll talk about that. The characters were not subtle at all. The dead people, so they have this wreath that protects them from the dead people, basically, is how the story goes. They added that in, it wasn't in the book. But when they have that wreath, the characters will look at it and just be like, and like stuff like that, and it's like, how can you not realize that these people are weird as hell? And then when the dead people finally like come after them, they have this weird grayscale effect. I think they were trying to save money on makeup or something like that, but like they are cut out. If you edit stuff, masking is where you cut out people or like cut out whatever you want. So they like mask the people and then just turn them gray. Like, this is the effect basically. Spooky, right? And it was really apparent around the dog, so I thought that was kind of funny. The book and the episode were kind of cheesy, but I really enjoyed them. I think I'd give the book probably a 7 out of 10 for a Goosebumps book. I thought it was really good. I know R.L. Stine said about this one in specific that he wished he had more comedic elements in it, but I'm happy he didn't. I really liked it, and it didn't need any comedic elements. The TV episodes, now I understand I complained about them a lot and whatever, but I would honestly say that they are some of the better episodes of the show, and I would probably give them maybe even a higher score, maybe even like a 7.5 out of 10 or something like that. Like, for me, 5 is meh. So like 7.5 is pretty good, you know? So yeah, that was me talking about Welcome to Dead House. Thanks for watching. Stick around. I need to talk with you specifically. So next time we are going to talk about Stay Out of the Basement. So make sure you pick that up and read it, and we can talk about it. So yeah, thanks for tuning into this Goosebumps book club. I know it's not an original idea or anything, but I thought it would be fun, and I want to read every single Goosebumps book, and doing this would kind of give me an incentive to do it, you know? So yeah, I've been a long-time fan of the Goosebumps series, so thank you guys very much for watching. We'll be doing this every other week, so make sure to tune in then. Maybe hit the sub button so you don't miss it. I don't know. Well, thank you for hanging out with me and my Goosebumps friends. Oh yeah, fun fact, I was afraid of him until I was like 15, so he slept outside of my room. He slept? I don't know. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Hey, I used to live in your house.